Okay, let's see if this works. This is like my typical like streaming setup. I have my camera plugged into my computer again, so I'm like viewy over here. And we got some writing to do. This is not how you hold a pen. I've had the same job for almost 5.5 years now, and other than from April 2019 to March 2021, I have had some form of frustration with management and how things are kind of handled and addressed and said and whatnot. And then it's like you get to April 2019, like I just got this management where it was like it was perfect. It worked for me. The manager wasn't like some micromanager, wasn't always trying to get on your case. It was pretty much just like, unless there's a problem, I'm gonna just let you do you, and I'm gonna do me, and then we're good. And my current manager is definitely a micromanager, but it seems like the people around don't realize this and don't seem to understand this. And it's gone to a point where it's like I'm just so frustrated and stressed and anxious. Like, I have cried so much in the last month. It got to a point where I like bumped it up to my group manager, who's like a general manager in a sense, just to give like a perspective you don't understand. So the group manager is like, there's 4 teams in my department, and the group manager like is the overall manager of the managers, and then each team has their individual manager. And then below that we have like resource officers, which is just like an assistant manager essentially. But the point is, like, I bumped it up and I was just like saying all these things because my current manager is doing a lot of things that from my perspective just don't seem appropriate, and just no one seems to really understand that. Like, one person did, but they're so low on the totem of leadership that they can't do anything about it. They can only just be like, here's my perspective, here's their perspective, they're just following the procedure to the HR real good. I had a meeting, 2 meetings actually, this past week, where they were each 1.5 hours long the same day, and one was with my group manager individually, and then one was with my group manager and my department manager, so my like team manager. And it literally just ended with me crying so much. And it got to a point where in the like group meeting, my manager and I started yelling at each other, like just for yelling. Because my manager is one of those people that's like, you gotta hold me accountable too. It's not, I hold you accountable, but if you don't hold me accountable, I'm not doing anything. And it's like, it's not my job to hold you accountable to do your job. Like, it's literally in my manager's job description to be holding your team accountable for what they're saying or doing, whether it be career development, be, like accountabilities, metrics, just tasks. Because my department's very task-based, opposed to like it's hard to measure a lot of things, so it's more task-based. And for me, it's like my job description doesn't say I need to keep tabs on my manager. It's one thing to be like, yeah, I'll like check in every now and then, like, hey, is this still happening? That kind of thing. But it shouldn't be like, okay, we've had this coaching, so I'm gonna check in and be like, hey, did you do all these things you said you were gonna do? Like that. That's not my job. I should be checking in to make sure that we're still on the same page and whatnot. But if you tell me you're gonna do something, like an example was, my manager was gonna reach out to another department to set up like a meeting for me to meet with that department manager about some things involving that department. And they said, oh, I'm gonna reach out first and then let you know when it's okay to go ahead and reach out and figure out what you want to do. And my manager never reached out. And then we got to our next coaching and they're like, did you do the thing I asked you to do? And it's like, no. Did you do the thing you said you were going to do? And they're like, well, in my notes, like right here, it says that you were going to do everything yourself and that I wasn't doing anything. And then the moment I call it out, they're like, oh, well, let me like backtrack. Like, yeah, I reached out like I said I would, but then you never reached out. So like, that's your fault for not holding me accountable and also like not doing anything. And then, you know, they're also like, well, you can like look at our coaching notes at any time by like going to like this web page and then like writing the data, and then it'll show you my notes. So it's like, it's just excuse about how it's my fault that I didn't do all these things that I never agreed to do. So then when we get to this meeting finally, basically 5 months into being on this team, I'm at a point where I'm just so frustrated and stressed and anxious that all I can do is cry, and I can't really verbalize what I need to get out. Because there's definitely a communication issue. Like, there's no denying that. However, there's also a manager issue. It's very clear that I do not mesh with my manager, and while we share some similar views, that doesn't mean we're a good fit for each other, and my group manager doesn't understand that and doesn't want to address that. Because I actually asked to be moved to another team. There's 2 other teams I could be moved to. One is my original manager, and the other is just a manager who works, at least we're working from home now, but when we weren't working from home, worked in the same building as me. So there's 2 options, and my manager's like, this is not an option. And my group manager's like, yeah, it's not an option. So that just tells me that they're more concerned about fixing the communication piece, but not fixing the part where I don't have a working relationship with my manager that's going to be conducive to growth. What I figured to do is I'm going to write down all these current frustrations, and then once I write them down, hold on a second, we're going to shred them. Because I was going to burn them, but like, I don't have a safe way to burn them. Also, like, burning paper is such a waste. If I shred it, I can at least like use it for something. But I'm gonna shred them. I'm gonna shred my frustrations, and I'm gonna try to move on, because these frustrations are strictly work-based. I do not have these frustrations outside of work. So, I'm gonna put this over here. It's a very dusty shredder, I'm sorry. So let's write down... That hurt. Let's write down some frustrations. So, first frustration is micro managers. And micromanagers to me are those that basically always need to be in control, don't want to let you have the moment of being right. My current manager also gaslights me, which doesn't work, but that's what they're trying to do. So I'm not motivated by praise, especially if it's me just doing my job. And my manager, especially in the meeting that we had this week, was very much like, I'm gonna praise you, and praise is due because you deserve to have it, and it makes me feel good. And it's like, right there, you're doing it for yourself, not for me. Don't like that. Like, I've even asked them to not do that, especially like in a public setting. So like, we have a group, like, team chat, and it's like, praise the people who want it, and it isn't the business of the rest of the team if they don't see me getting praised. Because my manager's just like, well, if they don't see you getting praised, they're gonna think you're being ignored. And it's like, that doesn't matter though. You need to realize that you're ignoring the needs of an individual that doesn't require adaptability. You don't have to adapt or change anything in your management style other than just being like, okay, I'm not gonna praise this person publicly because they're frustrated by it, they're annoyed by it, and it makes them unhappy. So like, you're basically making me miserable because I'm asking you to not do the thing that you keep doing, and it's really annoying. So there's gonna be a point where I might just say in the group chat, be like, hey, can you please not do this? It actually annoys me a lot. Like, I might just put it in the group chat and say, hey, you know, I know I'm probably the only person on the team that isn't motivated by praise, but it does annoy me when I constantly am seeing it. It's like, I'm just doing my job. You know, if they're really something where I've gone like way above and beyond my job description, then yeah, sure, praise then is valid. But I don't need to hear, oh, you're doing amazing, like, every day. Like, I don't care, I'm just doing my job. Be a little different if I was doing like multiple things out of my job description. Then yeah, like, cool, praise is definitely worth it then. Praise those who want it. Don't try gaslighting me, because that just makes me more mad. What else? Oh, not being listened to. Not being listened to. So I definitely am a very emotional person when I speak, when I'm frustrated. So like, a lot of tears, a lot of like just frustrated words come out. So I'm gonna say emotional frustration is a good one to put down. I would say another issue is dismissive. My current manager is very dismissive. I spelled this wrong, but it's fine. My manager is very matter of fact, very much like facts. Like facts are facts, America. That is them. And emotion should play no role in their opinion. And yes, emotion can definitely affect your perception of things. Absolutely. But there is a time and a place where emotion needs to be listened to and it needs to be validated. And while it's being validated for me by my management, it's not being listened to. And that's a problem for me, which then causes me to get more emotional because I'm just like, you're not listening. Which is pretty common of corporate jobs. I work in the social media field, so it's like nothing but emotional customers obviously coming to us for issues. There are definitely happy customers just like, we love you, and it's like, oh, thank you. You don't know who I am, but I love you too. Interview frustration. So that's been an issue for me my entire 5.5 years, is that I go from like getting good feedback in an interview to just getting no real feedback, and there's no middle ground. So I'm trying to incorporate what they say I can work on, and then I do it, but then there's always something else to work on. So I'm just confused where like there's always a problem, and that's frustrating. My most recent interviews were back in November. It's almost a year now. Crazy. And one interview feedback was confusing, but I had it broken down by someone else in the department who understood the hiring manager way better than me. So like, here's what they mean based on like the answers that the feedback they gave you and what you're saying you said, like gist wise in the answers to the questions. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And I just kind of left it there. And I told the hiring manager, I'm like, hey, I spoke to this person about your feedback because I just didn't quite get it. I didn't feel you could give me enough of elaboration to really get it, because I needed a third perspective who is completely on the outside. So it's like, here's the hiring manager's perspective, here's mine, and then they're like, okay, find the middle ground, and it helped. And then the second interview was for a management role in my department, and I didn't really get much feedback. So the hiring manager was my current manager at the time, and they quite literally just were like, work on this. And it's like, oh, like, we had a tough time, work on this, which was a 36A, so an action plan for going into the role, which is fair. I'd never written one before, so like that is like a valid critique, but that's it. I didn't really get like, well, so was there an issue of like how I was answering things? Was there an issue of like, was there too much of a delay? Like, I had to think too much, so like, did you feel I was underprepared or something? Like, I never got it. And then my current manager was also in the interview. We're just like, you were just really negative the whole time, which is funny because that manager, or my current manager, when they were asking me questions, or even when they're not asking, they were very like closed off body language wise. They had a very like face, like I'm angry face, and their tone was very negative, and the way they would respond, like, because a lot of my job asks situational questions in interviews because it is task-based, so it's like, well, what would you do in this situation, blah, 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 blah. And when I didn't have an answer, I tried to give one from my most recent role, which at that point in time was a little over a year ago. So it wasn't like super long time ago, but it was old enough, it's like, well, it was like a year and a half at that point. So it was like a year and a half previous role. And they're like, well, I want to hear from this role. And it's like, well, I don't have an example. And then I would try to give an example of what I would probably do, since I have an example. And it was just like, well, that's not what I want to hear. So to have someone be like, you're being negative, or I felt like you were being negative the whole time, but then they're doing it also, it's just, I don't get it. How can you say I'm being negative the whole time, but you're being negative the whole time? So, twisting of words, that's own. Twisting of words. And again, I brought this up in the meeting this week too, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, my group manager was just like, this is fine, this is fine, it's all on you, it's all in your head, it's fine. And it's just like, it's just, it feels like it's just management protecting management. And I might start looking for a new job, honestly. And if I do intend to do it, I'm probably going to push this as far into HR as possible, because it's very clear that we're more worried about a group opposed to the individual. And well, yes, you can't always have it your way. You can't always have everything to your liking. You need to be flexible to certain things. But there's also a point where your manager, as a manager, you need to be adaptable to coaching. You need to be adaptable to someone's needs. So someone's like, hey, please just don't overpraise me. That's not like something that like compromises your character to do. You know, you can still like praise in a side check. You can send like an email, you know, like you can send like a monthly, hey, go over in a coaching. It's like at the end of the month, say, hey, I just want to review these things that I thought you did really well this month. Like that's an appropriate time for praise, because that's what a coaching for us for is. We have 2 focused coachings and then 2 integrated. Integrated is like basically my manager watches me do my job to make sure I'm like not doing something illegal, essentially. Or unethical or whatever. And then the focus ones is like development, so like career, going over like, are you meeting your accountabilities, do you have any questions, any concerns, department problems, that kind of thing. So like the last meeting of the month is always focused, so that's a time to go like, hey, I made a list of all the things I thought you did really great this month. Go over it then, not like say it every day, because it's annoying to me. You know, if there are other people who want it, yeah, let them have it, because that's what they want and you're happy doing that. So you're not compromising your character by saying, hey, I'm going to do it once a month for you, and I'll do it daily or weekly for these people, because that's what they want. So that like saves you time in reality. That's like, you know, good times there. But twisting of words, yeah. But anyways, interviews, not really knowing what to do. My manager said like, oh, I'm going to get you some feedback from like previous interviews, because I know those managers, and we'll work on that. And then it came back to the whole accountability thing, where it was just like, oh, what's the word? You didn't like reach out to me and make sure I was still doing it, so I just didn't give you it. And it's just like, no. Accountability. Let's just write that down. I don't know what just moved, and that makes me scared. Accountability. Because definitely I need to hold myself accountable, but I shouldn't have to hold my manager accountable unless it's something like I specifically asked, like I need to keep tabs on it, like time constraint type of thing. But that hasn't happened. I think the biggest one is just my job. There we go. There's my list. So we got micromanagers, gaslights, gaslight, but it's fine. Not being listened to, emotional frustration, team dynamics, dismissive, interviews. I told you dismissive wrong, I'm so sorry. Twisting of words, accountability, and my job. I'm just frustrated with everything, so, you know. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Just the past. There we go, just so you know I wrote it. The past. Okay. So we're gonna shred this. And my goal is more symbolic that I'm gonna shred this. I start vacation after my shift tomorrow, and I'm hoping that I'll come back and I can say goodbye to all of this from my side and just manage my own problems, manage my own expectations. Like that's what we're gonna do. So let's get this shredder shredded. All right. Okay. This is dusty, I'm so sorry. Okay. This is what I need to do. I need to let these go. I need to be my authentic self and know that, you know, corporate management isn't what it's cracked up to be, and sometimes they really are just defending themselves so they don't get in trouble. So okay, so I have shred those frustrations, and that's where we're gonna end it. And I'm gonna hope that for my own mental health, emotional health, physical health, and just overall being, that I'm gonna let all these things go, because I can influence them, but I cannot change them without help from like more than just myself. So I'm gonna just do me, and if doing me means I need to move on, we're gonna do that. And also maybe I should get a therapist. I think that would be really helpful too, because I'm sure there's some like hidden stuff in there that I'm not like realizing. But look after yourself, guys and girls and non-binary pals. Anyways, see ya.